clients that have been put on hold. Obviously they're eager to go, but new bookings, because I think they've realised that we've been locked away and we've missed out on all of these moments, and we want to capture what we can when we can.
And I've realised I really love my family because we've been hanging out.
or I need some new photos just of myself because I've ditched everyone.
That's it. Hello.
Hello. How are you?
Good.
That's
the
good.
Internet. Isn't it an amazing thing?
Such a cool thing. Where would I be without it?
I know.
The best and the worst of everything.
It is. This whole COVID thing has made me feel, because I'm in regional North Queensland, never feel so connected ever.
Yeah.
Because I've
I've spoken to so many people that have been talking about how being in regional areas, their social life has just been off the charts.
Amazing. Really just connecting into different ecosystems. And it's like, I always miss out because I'm not in a big city. And I've always said to myself, if only I was in a big city, then things would be different. And it's kind of true now, but like once they moved everything online, there was no real reason not to be part of anything.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
How are you?
I'm all right. It's funny because you get asked that. It's like, how are you? And you kind of like, you just rattle off, yeah, I'm all right. But really, you're just kind of going, everyone's just getting by at the moment. We're just kind of, we're just nod and agree. Yep, we know where we're going. We're just, rolling with every punch that comes our way.
Yeah. Well, thank you for coming on Yarning with Jannah. I'll just do a little intro here. So Emily Black, welcome to Yarning with Jannah, this episode of Yarning with Jannah. So I do a recording of this, but generally it's kind of for me to go back and reference it, and then I'll write a story of it as well, and then I will release it as a recording as well, if anyone wants to go a little bit deeper on you and hear all about you. Oh my God. So tell me, Emily, so basically, where are you from? How did you get started in photography, and like, where are you based? And give us the story.
Right, how long did this go for? So I'm from Melbourne. I'm born and raised in Melbourne. I've lived here my whole life, in various parts of Melbourne. Photography though, do you know what? I was given a camera when I was about 10 years old, and it was just like those tiny little Animex, like little cartridge ones, those tiny little things, and it had 12. Yes, and it had 12 photos on it, like the cartridge. I was like, and my dad was like, "Be really, really careful. Like this is, the holy grail. You cannot waste film. It's just not on." So I think I learned from a very, very early stage that every photo counted. And then when I was at high school, I actually had one teacher who was instrumental in me pursuing it as a career. So just said that I had an interesting way of looking at the world. So, and that was all I needed to roll with it. So that was 20 something years ago. So that's kind of where I'm at. I've always done it. I went straight to uni, went straight into press photography, and then my own business. So it's kind of all I've known.
All I've known. And so when you first started, it was all film back then, or was there a transition to go into? Yeah. I was the hang on, he's swearing aloud.
I
swear everyone asks that. Everyone was like, at some point, like, is swearing cool? Yeah, go.
I was the darkroom bitch. So I would go in and mix all the chemicals and yell at people for leaving things in developer for too long, and don't you mix the chemicals and all that kind of stuff. So that was my role in high school. So it was the black and white films. We had the massive rolls that you'd roll into the little cartridges. You'd try and get as many, you'd try and budget from 36 to about 38, 39, try and get it in there, and your black and white film, and you'd process that, and then you'd go and you'd develop your film and your prints and stuff, and hang them up. And the smell I think still lingers in my skin somewhere. So I've been doing film. Film was the first love. So.
And when you had to make that transition, I remember my transition. So I was a school-based trainee, and I went straight into professional photo finishing. So I was the darkroom bitch as well.
Yeah.
And then I saved up all of my apprenticeship wage, which back then was like minuscule for this film camera, my very own camera. And I reckon about 2 months later, everything just went digital. How did you, and I was devastated, obviously devastated, right? How did you go with that transition?
I was convinced it would never take off.
Oh no!
I was one of those ones because I was at uni and we were still heavily film based, and that was when they were sort of announcing that there was digital technology that was becoming, the first digital camera was sort of starting to come out and all that kind of stuff. And they said, right, whatever, that's not going to take off. Everyone's going to love film, and now I've got my camera on my phone, so I've adapted. I think it was tricky, but I think at the time that I was at, I went into press photography. We were still using film predominantly. There was still a few digital cameras starting to come in, but they were like the golden photographers that were, the ones that you wanted to be.
Yeah.
And I was still a film developer. That's where I started in press photography as well. I was doing all the films and stuff. So, I was also training the older guys in how to scan a film, then process it onto a computer and things like that. So I think maybe because I had to evolve into it, I think that process probably helped. But the film cameras were still at that point way superior in what they could capture than the digital stuff. Like those early digital cameras were just, the color space on them was just nuts.
Do you still shoot film?
I do occasionally, but I must admit I'm a little bit, I've delved even further back. I do cyanotypes for fun now. So I get into the really old processing of stuff. So partly just to step away from all of the technology, because it's actually a bit like a meditation, because you've just got to be completely in that moment and process all of that yourself and mix chemicals again and stuff. So
wonderful.
Yeah, it's fun.
Do you still think that the quality is superior?
Film quality? I think there's a nostalgic love of certain films. Like there's, the old Kodak T-Max stuff. I love the grain in that. You can't replicate that in well, people try, but you can't really replicate that in digital stuff. I think they're each and of their own. I think they both have advantages and disadvantages. I love the process of film, but it'd be impossible for me to work in that way solely because the turnaround time just isn't the same.
Takes so much careful consideration through the shots, as you said in the beginning with the the 120 film as well. So you got 12 shots, make them count.
Yeah, you have to be really careful. And I mean, I did large format, medium format stuff as well. So that was another case of you really had to slow down and be really careful in what you were capturing and make sure that the exposures were correct. I mean, when I started in uni, it was all shot on slide. So everything had to be right.
Yeah.
And you couldn't bracket, you couldn't do like 10 shots to make sure you got the right one. You really had to be, had to think on the moment and make sure that you had everything good to go. So it was a good training ground, I think.
Yeah, very much so. And do you still find yourself very mindful, even though you are using digital now, mindful in that moment about, I don't know, does it change the way you think while you're shooting, or are you happy just to boom, 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 and head off and bracket your life away?
On my phone, I think I do that. Just get nuts on the phone. Look, I think being in press and film, not the processing of it, the cost of it not necessarily being as important, because I could just process it at work and stuff. I think I've always overshot just a little bit.
Okay.
Back in those days, but the stupid thing is that there's no need for me to do that. I'll get 3 of the exact same exposure because I know how to set up most things. So just, you kind of go, well, why did I need 3 shots of that landscape? I really didn't.
That's it. What if there was a blink? Yeah. So
yeah.
You shoot landscape as well?
I do. I think I've done just about everything. I do landscapes and nature and stuff. I've sort of delved more into again. That was the first love. That's what I started shooting back in my high school days and stuff. That's what I love to do. And then in uni, I love to do the landscapes and stuff. But I like to explore. I like to hike. I like to get in nature. So that's a little bit of a therapy for me. I love photographing people too, but they're two very different ball games. When I started shooting newborns though, I did overshoot that. You'd have like 300 shots on a shoot. And you'd be like, the baby's sleeping, it's got its eyes closed. I didn't need to shoot 3, 4, 5 frames of that very thing. I think it was that when you're going into a new genre, maybe you just overshoot just because you're so nervous that you're not going to get the shot. Yeah.
Nature's now, I've never been good at landscape. I've had people say, oh, can you teach me how to use my camera and we'll go do some landscapes? I'm like, seriously, man? Like, go on Creative Live or something. Like, I'm not your person. Like the sitting outside with the bugs and the things.
I'm a really impatient landscape photographer. I'm like, I consider myself the lazy landscaper. Like, I will pull the car over on the side of the road and go, I'll just take a photo of that and just keep going. I'm not the one that, I'm not like the Ken Duncans or the Steve Parrish that goes and sits and hangs out in, leech infested waterways and stuff to get that one shot of that bird that's flying through at the sunset. And I don't have that patience. But I will try and put myself in certain environments at a certain time of the day to get a photo. But I'm emotionally connected to it. It's not, it's more about, I would call myself a nostalgic landscape photographer as well. So I'm trying to, I think, relive the youth of camping trips and things like that and memories that I have of places. So yeah.
And so what are you shooting I haven't been shooting a lot, obviously, of your of work, and we'll get into that a little bit later, but like primarily what are you doing for business most of the time? What are you shooting?
Well, here's the thing. I call myself a portrait photographer, I suppose, solely, or mostly. I photograph love, I photograph families, I photograph babies, I photograph, weddings from time to time. So I'm a bit of everything. Like I really am. Although good. I would say that, predominantly family and newborns and maternity is my thing when I'm photographing people. But even then, I'm so connected to the mother side of it. I love that connection of a mother and a child, a mother and a baby, the mother and the pregnant belly kind of thing. Like, I love all of that connection that happens. And I think it's knowing it's got to do with my story and what I missed out on or what I was connected to at the time. I'm trying to recapture that for people that I come into contact with my clients and stuff like that. So
I was going to ask, so what brought that about is about telling the mother's story.
I think I loved being pregnant. It was like, I really enjoyed the pregnant bit. The birth was just a schmozzle, and then the first year of life was a blur. But I loved being pregnant because there was a real, this is an experience that's just between me and my child. And that's really special. And I think it's about honouring that process that women go through. And a lot of women, I think, feel they feel there's so much change going on that they don't necessarily recognise themselves or give themselves the time to actually just be in that moment as well. If I can give them 1 hour on a maternity shoot to really connect and feel their child, and imagine and visualize and use that as part of their process in embracing what they're about to go into, then that's like the best thing in the world. I love seeing that happen in a client's face when I'm shooting them when they're pregnant.
And what about that transition to then, and do they come in and then have their portraits taken after Bubs arrive?
Yeah. I think because a lot of families, a lot of mothers would be, oh, I want to get the newborn photos done. And they hadn't necessarily considered getting maternity because they're like, oh, I don't feel great. My ankles are swollen and everything's fat. You know, I don't want to do it. And I usually talk them into it, and they experience that. But and then they come in afterwards, and we do the newborn photos. But it's about that process as well. Like I want the whole story. I want to have, you know, elements for their future story and their the albums that they create, or the prints that they get, or however they're going to put that together. I want the pregnancy to be part of that whole process. Families come back 6 months, 12 months, and then they have subsequent babies. Like I've got clients that I've had for 10 years because I've photographed a wedding and then they've had a baby, and, you know, that's my jam. Like I'm in the long haul. I want to be with them the whole way
like
through.
Every family needs a butcher.
Yeah,
it's like every family needs a photographer. That's how I got in my head as well. You have them forever. Have them for life.
Yeah. I photographed a client, their wedding, and I said, so you realise that this is it. You can't actually ask anyone else to be a photographer now, because like I'm here for the babies and the, you know, all of the rest of the journey that you guys are on. And they're like, oh well, sweet, easy.
Yeah,
you don't have to look then.
It's so true, isn't it? Like they and I wrote a blog piece about this last month, a thought piece about this as well, especially even through COVID. Like what we're seeing more and more of is renegade people going, you know what, it's not about the big brouhaha, and that but it's becoming more evident that people are still really want to capture the memories of it, so they're still investing in photography, even probably more so than before, making sure that they've got someone to capture it.
I actually think that this whole year, this whole pandemic and everything has really opened people's eyes to what's important, and it's really opened people's eyes in what they're missing out on if they don't have photos. Value has changed, and I just can't imagine people not valuing photos more from this whole process, because being locked away and disconnected from people, photos are so important.
And sharing them, yes.
Yeah.
And so I've seen a lot of our community anyway is saying that bookings are like inquiries are through the roof, especially down there now.
Yes.
Have you found that as well?
Yeah, I had so many contacts yesterday just when we found out that, you know, restrictions had eased enough for outside photography, and there was like people going, I'm not sure I'm ready for all of these people to contact me. Like I've got to ease back into like human interaction again. It's been, people are ready for it. People are eager to do it. They're, you know, clients that have been put on hold. Obviously they're eager to go, but new bookings, because I think they've realised that we've been locked away and we've missed out on all of these moments, and we want to capture what we can when we can.
And I've realised I really love my family because we've been hanging out.
or I need some new photos just of myself because I've ditched everyone.
That's it. And so you played a huge role, especially down in Victoria, for people to be photographed without their mask. Because having your mask, you kind of need to have one, I guess, just to document that. But tell me about that. And I didn't want to read too much into it because I wanted to hear it from you. I want to hear the whole story. Like, how did this come about?
Oh God. It came about from some stupid fine print, really, because when we looked at the restrictions and the roadmap and how things were going to pan out for coming back into work, everything was great. Like, okay, well, we can shoot again. That's great. But our clients have to wear a mask if they leave their house. So what do we do there? And surely there must be some sort of logical explanation that, you know, they'd be able to take a mask off. But no, there wasn't. It had been completely overlooked. And look, I understand that there's a heck of a lot going on aside from just photography. But it was the fact that it was putting people at risk of a fine and photographers at risk of being fined themselves for advising somebody else to take a mask off and things like that. So and there's photographic evidence that I photographed you on this date and you took your mask off. You know, like we're in the process of proving things. So yeah, it was it just became really obvious that it wasn't, you know, it just hadn't really been thought through, which then created a bigger issue in that the way photographers worked wasn't understood in moving forward into reopening. So there was questions about, okay, well, a couple are getting married and surely they have to have their mask off for the kiss and the I do's and all of that kind of stuff. And there's like, but photography is bigger than weddings. So, okay, well, if a child, you can take photograph a child because they're under 12, they're not wearing a mask, that's all good. Okay, well, yeah, but mum and dad have got their mask on. I mean, like the flow on became quite epic. And as restaurants and things like that started to have their plan for moving forward and how they were going to open up, and the removal of a mask to eat your food, that was okay, or the removal of a mask to have a cigarette or drink your coffee while you're out walking, that was allowed. But something that was even safer, which was, you know, socially distanced through long lenses and no necessary, no touching and things like that outdoors, that wasn't an exemption to remove a mask. So it was just frustrating.
Yeah.
And to get through the fine print of all of that. So when, and it opened up the door, I think, for other industries as well that had realised that it wasn't practical for them either. But actually having photography at the forefront and hearing the word photographers mentioned in press conferences and things like that, the phone was going nuts. They mentioned us. They understand.
You started a petition, is that correct?
Yeah, we started a petition, and there's so much to it. So the petition was one element of it. That's a really great way to engage the community and to be seen to be doing something. So if I can bang on about the AIPP just a little bit, because what had happened was, you know, times are changing, memberships are changing, the way we work as an industry or a profession is changing. And there was, you know, especially this year, it's like, this is a chance for us to be seen to be advocating for the profession, not just for our members, but for the whole profession. People can be very cynical about what the AIPP was, and we're not, you know, they're just awards based or this, that and the other. And I'm like, that's not what I joined the AIPP for. I've got a community around me, sure, but it's actually about advocating for the profession itself. I care more about the profession than just having the fact that I can say I'm an AIPP member. The profession is, we need that industry body to advocate for everyone, and that's exactly what happened. And it actually showed us to be doing so and advocating for all sorts of photographers that hadn't even felt like they were seen as well, like kinder photographers. There's been a huge what do you call, swell of love coming from them, because we've simply said kinder photographers are part of this too. And, you know, it's been really, really heartwarming to see photographers that had maybe never considered being part of something bigger than themselves. We'd been so insular for so long because you sort of work by yourself. You've got your little group of friends and photographers around you, but this was so much bigger than that. It's a whole state of support. So yeah, the petition was a really great way to be seen to be doing, but there was other work obviously that had to go on in the background in connecting with members of Parliament and other creative industries and things like that to really build a solid foundation of advocacy and what we needed specifically. And the petition brought people forward that said, oh, hey, I know somebody at Channel 10, or I know somebody in the minister's office. Or so people seeing what we were doing created this swell, and then they had one place they could come back to be able to go, okay, well, here's what I've got, can you use that? Absolutely. I'll take anything. I'll talk to anyone that's listening to me at the moment.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, because it would open up those connections and those doors to go to the right place.
It opens up a greater community. I think people realised that it was bigger than themselves. It was bigger than wedding photographers. It was bigger than lifestyle photographers. It was bigger than newborn photographers. It was all of us as a profession realising that this impacts us all, regional and metro as well. So yeah,
and it engaged those that weren't necessarily even part of the AIPP as well.
Yeah, exactly. They felt advocated for, which was, you know, exactly what it should be.
And what it stands for.
Yeah.
Well done. So
it's still going.
It's still going, is it? So as it stands, where are we at today?
So, well, masks can be removed while people are actively being photographed. We are continuing to work with the department and the Minister for Jobs and jobs, something.
One of the
titles,
things.
The title's like really long. Working with them and the and connections that we've got to get into the Premier's office and things like that, just to make sure that the steps that we take moving forward in reopening can be done safely, and what we actually do as a profession, what it looks like. Because there was a confusion that we were being lumped into one sort of category. So every photographer work, you know, sort of the idea of, well, a photographer works in a studio and there's 20 people as part of the team, and there's a hairstylist and there's a lighting guy, and, you know, it's explaining that, well, there's sole trader photographers, there's studio photographers, there's you know, what can we do each step of the way to actually start reopening safely, and explaining what that looks like as well, in how we can do that safely, and in some cases safer than some industries that maybe were already open.
Already going, which get overlooked.
Yeah. So as of what day is it? Yeah, as of yesterday, as of the 19th, there was open for outdoor photography. But then, of course, there's funny things with terminologies and stuff like that you then have to follow up afterwards and make sure that they knew exactly what
outdoor means. Oh my God.
Well, not even what outdoor means, but they you know, it's outdoor photography for a person being paid to do a session that has an ABN. Like it's kind of but they threw the word commercial in there, which kind of threw a lot of people.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So people were sort of freaking out, going, well, I'm not a commercial photographer, but I'm getting paid for my job that I'm doing, and I've got an ABN, so what do I do? And
you're commercially,
it's clarifying all of that. It was like, well, actually, you're doing a job. You are commercially
doing a job.
And I think I was chatting with my husband last night, and he said, I'm pretty sure it's only photographers that see that there's a commercial photographer and a something else photographer. Like, I think it's been overlooked. I said, well, you know, I can't say that though, can I? I can't, you know, I have to make sure that we're all on the same page. I can't advise people the incorrect way. Yeah.
Oh, that's excellent. So that's good moving forward. And
so outdoors is one thing, and then it's what the next step is, what that looks like. I mean, we don't know yet, and I think as you know, especially down here in Melbourne, I think people are there's a statement made, and then there's a mad scurry to make sure that all of the fine print is sorted out in what that looks like, because you know, we could imagine that studios would be open at the next step when retailers open, but is that the case? We don't know. It's just, it just keeps going.
It does, doesn't it?
Like, you know, if the photography thing fails, I could just go work in government.
I was going to say that. I was like, better get some legislation, and
I'll become a consultant for the government.
So what can we do to help you? Is there anything that we can give back from Album Registry or from a community?
I don't know.
You don't know?
I don't know if I'm at that point where I know. I still feel like I'm in worker mode, trying to make sure that we can all kind of get back to doing what we do. Look, I think overall as a as a photography profession, there is a newfound appreciation for what we do. So I imagine that there's going to be more people that are, like I said earlier, are going to be booking sessions in and are realizing just how important things are, and photos that they have had in the past, transferring that from a digital something digital into something. I mean, during the pandemic, our computer, like, I've got things backed up, thank Christ, but but our Mac, our vintage Mac, packed it in, and and it's like, well, not everyone backs things up. Like, not everyone has things stored away safely, and not everyone prints their images, like, and during a pandemic, you're already heightened with your emotions and you're thinking, shit, what have I lost? I think people are valuing the tangible so much more, because you can sit around and you can really appreciate taking the time to appreciate what you have. So I'm not sure what we need.
Do more of what we've been doing. Some more print your photos, videos, and the humor and that sort of stuff. I think it is that. I think the community has actually been really incredible. Actually, I think it's been an insane year, and I think it's brought real awareness as to what's really valued and what's really important, and what we can actually do without, and what we can't live without. Yeah. Beautiful. Excellent. Well, thank you so much for coming on to the show.
Shucks. Thanks.
And look, if there's absolutely anything that we can do to help out in the other stages, of anytime anything pops into your head, please give us a yell. We'll be more than happy to do whatever we can to help.
Yeah, I'm one of those people that people offer support, and I'm just like going, I can't think right now, but
if it comes,
something will come to me.
You know where to find us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Beautiful. All right. Thank you so much for coming on, and wish you all the best for the future of reopening down there in Victoria as well. And I
can't wait to photograph people again. It's going to be great.
It'll be great. Awesome. Thanks so much, Emily.
Thanks. Bye.